song, praising my Savior all the day long.
Amen. There's strength within the sorrow. There is beauty in our tears, and you meet us in the morning with a love that casts out fear. You are working in our waiting, sanctifying us, and beyond our understanding, you're teaching us to trust. Your plans are still to prosper. You have not forgotten us. You're with us in the fire and the flood. You're faithful forever, perfect in love. You are sovereign over us. You are wisdom unimagined. Who could understand your ways? Reigning high above the heavens, reaching down in endless grace. You're the lifter of the lowly, compassionate and kind. You surround and you uphold me, and your promises are mighty light. Your plans are still to prosper. You have not forgotten us. You're with us in the fire and the flood. You're faithful forever, perfect in love. You are sovereign over us. Even when the enemy means for evil, you turn it for our good. You turn it for our good, for your glory. Even in the valley, you are faithful. You're working for our good. You're working for our good, for your glory. Even when the enemy means for evil, you turn it for our good. You turn it for our good, for your glory. Even in the valley, you are faithful. You're working for our good. You're working for our good, for your glory. Your plans are still to prosper. You have not forgotten us. You're with us in the fire and the flood. You're faithful forever, perfect in love. You are sovereign over us. Your plans are still to prosper. You have not forgotten us. You're with us in the fire and the flood. You're faithful forever, perfect in love. You are sovereign over
oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still, know you are God. Find rest, my soul, in Christ alone. Know His power in quietness and trust. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still, know you are God. Find rest, my soul, in Christ alone. Know His power in quietness and trust. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still, know you are God. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still, know you are God. I will be still, know you are God. I will be still, know you
Now, this is the story all about how my life got turned, flipped upside down. No, hang on, that's the wrong gig. Just a little bit of a warning as we get started. Part of our story, my story particularly, is talking about mental health, and I know that might be something that triggers some of you. If it is, seek some help. If it's something you struggle with, seek help. I am very fortunate that I managed to find a way that wasn't medical and didn't require therapy. Doesn't work for everybody. So please, if it's something that really rings true with you, go and see somebody. But before we actually begin the tale, can I just pray for us all? Lord God, I just thank you for this opportunity. And Lord, I just pray that in sharing our story, the focus will not be with us, but the focus will be on you. And that everyone here will be blessed a little bit by seeing, or a lot by seeing, your love at work in ordinary people. And that your name will be glorified by what we say today. In your precious name. Amen.
Okay, so we've been blessed with relatively comfortable lives. So it's actually a really good opportunity to be asked to share our testimony and really think about how God has been working in our lives. For me, when thinking about sharing, I wanted to focus on a couple of things. How we've learnt to trust God more and more and understand his sovereignty, as we've been singing about, as we've journeyed through the ups and downs of life, and the way that God weaves our lives together to achieve his plans and his purposes, and recognizing, seeing those God incidences, not coincidences, but God incidences. And for Martin, a big thing is about becoming more authentic in who we are as made in the image of God. So I'm quite visual in my thinking, so I made a picture. It's a bit small on there, but I'll do some bigger bits in a minute. It's a bit of a combination of those two ideas. Firstly, that our lives have ups and downs, and that God is with us and working through all those times. And secondly, the idea that our threads are that we are all threads in God's tapestry, in his bigger picture, that interweave with each other. Sometimes our threads are closely wound together for a long time, sometimes a short period of time, sometimes they just cross for an instant. But we form one body in Christ. And we don't see the bigger picture, but God does. We only see a tiny little bit of it, but God sees the whole thing, the whole plan. So I'm going to hand over to Martin now for his bit, and I don't know what he's going to say, so we'll see.
It's a bit of a mystery to me as well, if I'm honest. Childhood, okay, beginnings. I was born in what I always considered to be a small town, but apparently it's a very large village, according to Wikipedia. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s in a Christian family, very much at church. The kind of church where we were taught that we were better than everybody else. The kind of church where how dare you go to a different church because they don't believe the same stuff as you. And that has had impacts over my life as how I've kind of got to know other kind of walks of Christianity. I don't want to use the word cult because it wasn't that kind of closed-inness, but it was very much we're better. And that really impacted me through my teenage years. I was socially awkward. I didn't relate to people very well at all. And growing up in the 90s was really hard.
I think it's pretty hard now as well.
Yeah, but in church back then, how dare you have questions? How dare you doubt? How dare you even think about the opposite sex? As a teenager, that's really hard. That's really hard. Fortunately, most of the rest of my life was good. I was good at school. I was not sporty, but I was musical, so that kind of meant that I got away with not being bullied too much. But the school I went to, if you didn't play football, you didn't count, which I think is most private schools in the UK still. But yeah, I kind of drifted through school, played the guitar a lot, played in church a lot. As soon as I could drive, as soon as I passed my driving test, I went to a different church. I found myself at a Baptist church that some friends went to, experienced Christ in a whole new way. Within 3 weeks, was asked to play on the worship team there, really got to enter into more of this kind of what I do now, but obviously at a very much more kind of immature level. But that was huge because I got to know other young people who thought a little bit differently, had different life experiences, but not the kind of scary secular life that some of my school friends were living. And then I went to uni to study software engineering, of all crazy things, which in 1996 was not the thing to study because it was mind-numbingly dull. I lasted 3 months. I walked out, went and got a job. Ended up working at a school, at which point probably I should now just pass the story over to Eva because it was her school.
Yeah, so I grew up in England with 2 younger brothers and very loving parents. My mum's a nurse, so you don't get sympathy, but you get love. She was one of 9 siblings, and in her family, they are Christians and there are Buddhists, although she's not really convinced by either. My dad was one of 8 and grew up in a Roman Catholic family in Hong Kong. And at age 6, when we moved to a new town, we got baptized, me and my 2 brothers, and we went to the local Catholic primary school. We also went to Mass, and when we were old enough, we went without our parents, and I think mainly that was so we could go to the sweet shop on the way back. So I did learn a lot about Jesus' teaching, his parables, how to treat other people, but not really about a personal relationship with God. When I was 16 and started my A-levels, the first significant, what I would call God incidents, happened. I was put into a different tutor group, so a different group of people in school, and ended up with a whole new friendship group. And one of those friends, Lizzie, she was a Christian. She invited me to the Christian Union at school, to her youth group, in the way that our youth invite their friends here as well, and to concerts, which included jumping around as well. Worldwide Message Tribe, if anyone remembers them. Her church, to conferences, and there was numerous, I would say, altar calls during that time. And it's a bit of a blur, but it's around that time I would say I became a Christian. Another big thing that happened was that I didn't get an offer from Cambridge, from the University of Cambridge, and I found out that the chemistry lab technician at my school was retiring. I thought maybe I could work as the chemistry lab technician for a year in my school and reapply to university. And so I did that, and also did Latin A-level for fun. And that year out, before going to university, turned out to be really quite important. As well as getting an offer from Cambridge, it was the year that I got to know Martin, because he was the physics lab technician. And his mum has also been my maths teacher. I started going to the church in my local town, which was a Baptist church, and it was where I was baptized in December, actually. Yeah, December 2000. My parents were supportive, as they always have been, of my choices, but they and my brothers, they still don't yet know Christ in the same life-changing way. One of the verses that was given to me at my baptism, so we had the tradition where different people in the congregation would give you a verse. I think it was by Martin's dad, and it was Proverbs 5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight, even if it's up and down. And this is something that we continue to learn every day. I'm going to pass back over to Martin now. Go to the next bit.
Okay, so at some point through university, before university, we were friends. We were occasionally at odds. And then, I think it was around May time, we realised that there was something maybe a little bit more than friendship going on. So we became very close. And that summer we got engaged before university. Initially, the plan was to get married after university. We then later on made the good decision to get married after second year. Made things a little bit tense and rushed during second year exams and all that kind of thing, thinking, okay, I'm sat an exam here, but in 4 weeks' time I'm going to be walking down the aisle. But no, it was really blessed time. We were really in a good church. Our small group community that we were in, which is why I think small groups is so important in church, because they were really the people who kind of bolstered us through all that time. Because obviously everybody has doubts and uncertainty, particularly leading up to major life events. But they were really supportive and encouraging of us. So we got married on the hottest day of 2002. Both our bridesmaids got sunburned during the photographs. So it was a lovely day. We had a lovely summer. Then we went and did the most challenging year, I think, of our life, which was final year of university, because I was in Salford and Eva was in Cambridge. And by third term, she wouldn't let me come down, distract her from her revision, so I didn't see her for like 5 or 6 weeks, which was hard. But God was always a part of our marriage, and we didn't have video calls and that back then, but we could still ring each other and chat on AOL Instant Messenger and all these kind of things. So we stayed in regular touch, even though we weren't physically in touch for a few weeks at a time. I'm sure many who've lived a transient lifestyle have experienced separation at some point. It's not always easy, but you get through it. And then, I've got to cover all the way to Cheddleton. Okay. We moved temporarily into, I had a house in Manchester that I'd bought very cheap as a student. We moved in there, and then Eva got a job in a town about an hour's drive away, so we started to look to move down into that way. I was working in a electrical shop, mostly in the warehouse, throwing boxes around and stuff like that. You know, someone threw something 40 kilos at you, you would catch it and throw it back. This is very relevant to later in the tale. In fact, as you may notice, the blue line, which is my line, goes down significantly at the end of the section. Because we then moved, as I say, to this really small village that actually isn't much smaller than where I grew up, but it felt like it, in Staffordshire, in the UK, in the hills. I got a different job as an IT technician, which meant I'd gone from burning 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day throwing boxes around to sitting at a desk burning 1,200 calories a day. The problem was that I didn't change my lifestyle, and I carried on eating 4,000 calories a day, and I put on 30 kilos in a year. My mental health, my self-respect, everything went completely through the floor. And I would say I call that period sort of 2005 to 15 my dark decade, because I could not look at myself in a mirror for 10 years. I could not wear shorts. I certainly would never go anywhere near a beach. And I was so blind to seeing my own condition that I didn't even notice any of the struggles Eva was having or any of the struggles any of my friends were having. Always, God was with me. Always, my church community was with me, supporting me in the way that they could. But until I was aware of where I was at, and until I made that decision to try and fix things with God's help and with other help, I was never going to get out of that, because you can't fix other people. You just have to pray for them. And I'm thankful that lots and lots of people prayed for me in those years.
So another important part of our life in Cheddleton, I'm not sure if you mentioned the name of the place. No. Okay, the village that we were living in, it was called Cheddleton, and important part of that was our church, St. Andrew's. It was a Methodist church, because there was only a Methodist church and an Anglican church in the village. The Methodist church had a wider range of people and ages, as well as comfier chairs. Martin does not like pews. But we were at that church for nearly 10 years, and it was a genuinely warm church family, and those are some of our closest friends that we had there. And it was a really important time of fellowship and again in small groups and support, and also serving through music and working with young people, some who are now grown up and married, which is a bit scary. Also, around that time, 2007, I took a step out in faith when I gave up my job as a development chemist in industry. I took on a part-time maternity cover job as a youth worker with what was called Synapse Youth Work Project. It was an organisation set up by a group of local churches from different denominations. The synapse is the gap between nerve cells across which messages are passed, and the name reflected how, as a youth work project, we were working in the gaps between young and old, schools and churches, and those inside and outside of the church. The youth work itself was generally great, and I know we did have a positive impact on the lives of many young people in the town, but it was a challenging time for myself for a few reasons. And I struggled with self-confidence, particularly in terms of managing another youth worker. But there were many strong Christians around me, and managing others is mostly what I do now. So I guess it was a useful experience that God has given me, and in that time was working his purposes out. After then going into teacher training, I taught in a Catholic school. So my own experience of Catholic school was quite useful. And it was really cool to be in a place where it was normal practice to pray with students, although some students appreciated it more than others. And another significant part of that time was setting up a community theatre group called Genesis Theatre. The links in the town with the churches and with the schools was really useful. And our first production, which was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, our Methodist minister and our very good friend Michael was Jacob, the Anglican minister was Potiphar, and the worship leader from the C of E church was Pharaoh. So it was a brilliant experience, and we had some really blessed times with that Genesis Theatre family. There were people from age 7 to 70 involved. We rehearsed in churches, and we were open about the Christian ethos of the group. So it was a way to welcome people into church spaces and build relationships with people who wouldn't otherwise have come into a church. It also, of course, gave young people an opportunity to develop their talents, and some of them are still now working in the performing arts. Then, after teaching in the UK for 4 years, we moved to an international school in Hong Kong. That's the sort of picture that's on there. Not only were we very fortunate in the roles that God provided for us in the school, but there were still even more amazing God incidences. One day, about a year after we'd been in Hong Kong, we were heading to the shopping piazza, which is across the road from the school. Walking along, and I saw someone I'd known from the Christian Union in my college at university. It was like, I know you. What are you doing here? And what she was doing there was she was visiting her friend from high school, Reba, who lived and worked at the charity Crossroads, which was next door to my school. And this was actually the first time when I heard the phrase, "There's no such thing as a coincidence, only God incidences." We started attending the same church as Reba and her husband Pablo. We stayed there for the rest of our 8 years we were in Hong Kong. We became really good friends with Reba and Pablo and got to know a lot more about the charity Crossroads. Okay, I'm going to pass back over to you.
Okay, now I think our time in Hong Kong was absolutely a blessing. I think we can certainly say that. It opened our eyes to the international world. Before I went, I think I knew people from 3 countries. By the time I left, I'd worked with people from 40. And that's what makes a community like this, and seeing all you lovely faces from different parts of the world so wonderful. But as well as that, we were very, very blessed. Financially, we had left the UK not quite in debt, but pretty much broke. I think we had like $200 to our name when we left the country. So we were very, very fortunate in our time in Hong Kong. God enabled us to pay off our house, to give a lot to the church community, to charities, and eventually to take the year out and work for Crossroads for a year. But before we got to that, is this where I'm supposed to mention I'm supposed to press the button? Yeah, there's a funny purple blob that many of us will recognize. 2020, we were in Phuket in Thailand in February for a holiday, and all of a sudden we started getting these messages. If you see any masks, buy them. Hong Kong is going down the proverbial drain. There's nothing in the shops. It's a serious thing. We'd heard about this disease in China, but it was in China. We didn't worry about it. Within a couple of months, my job at this point, I should say, because I'd changed jobs about 8 times during my time in Hong Kong, all at the school, but I was music coach, which meant my job was to work with groups of young people and prepare them for concerts. Problem during COVID? Can't work in groups. Are no concerts. What am I doing with my time? Well, one thing I did, which is why Eva's gone across to the computer, was that we had a problem, as I guess you did here, where a lot of churches started doing YouTube or Facebook live stream services, and we kept getting copyright strikes. Can't use this song. Someone else has claimed it. Now, I am not the greatest at playing any one instrument, but what God has blessed me with over the time is the ability to learn to play quite a few. And so what I ended up doing for my church, you're going to see a little bit of now, which is a song that we're going to do next week. We haven't done it very often here, but it's a beautiful song that's meant a lot to me from my teens, but certainly, all the way through my struggles, God's amazing love has been there for me. My Lord, what love is this that pays so dearly that the guilty one, may go free. Amazing love, oh what sacrifice. The Son of God given for me. My debt he pays, and my death he dies, that I might live, that I might live. And so they watched him die, despised, rejected, but oh, the blood he shed flowed for me. Amazing love, oh what sacrifice. The Son of God given for me. My debt he pays, and my death he dies, that I might live, that I might live. And now this love of Christ shall flow like rivers. Come wash your guilt away. Live again. Amazing love, oh what sacrifice. The Son of God given for me. My debt he pays, and my death he dies, that I might live, that I might live, that I might live. So, God had taken away my purpose to give me another one. That's happened before. It happened again. But I talked before about how things were really low. But what God was doing through all this time, and moving to Hong Kong was certainly a big part of it, was building me back up. If you've ever been in Southeast Asia in July and August, wearing long trousers is not an option. You had to get used to yourself being yourself. People around me were positive, enjoying life, not, oh, it's just another day at the office. I was working with young people who were energetic and fun and slightly crazy occasionally, a bit like our young people here. And they were inspiring me and making me feel young again, to the point that by 38, I was younger than I was when I was 28, if that makes any sense. And certainly I feel healthier, fitter, a lot more blessed at 46 than I did at 26. Praise God. Do I need to say any more, or are you taking it over here?
I could take it and then see.
Okay.
Okay. So I was actually quite fortunate during COVID. School was well-resourced for online learning. We'd already trialled it due to the protests when school was shut in Hong Kong. There was very strict entry, tracing and quarantine rules, which were not without problems, but we never actually had a full lockdown when we were there. And I realised I quite enjoyed working from home. And when living in a boarding school, when there's no pupils there, it's really quite nice and quiet. And with the additional spare time I had, I was able to do a little bit more arts and rediscover some painting. And when I do have time to do it and post like art online, I do try to use it to share ideas about God and salvation. So in 2019, we'd already decided to move on from Hong Kong, but weren't sure where. And I can't really remember how, but it was, looking back, obviously it was God-led. But we decided to spend some time working and volunteering at Crossroads, which is what the symbol is on the picture, and then going traveling before our next job. The generous salaries in Hong Kong did mean that we could take a year off work without worrying too much about finances. But we'd planned all this before COVID hit. And we ended up staying the whole year at Crossroads, where I was the volunteers manager and Martin was based in the electrical department. The main mission of Crossroads is connecting people in a world of need. It started when the founders, they were well known in the charity circuit, and they got a phone call about there was a massive flood in China with thousands and thousands of people displaced from their homes, lost all their belongings, etc. So the founders, they didn't know what they could do to help, really. But then they overheard a conversation of some women discussing the fact that one of them had a load of excess clothing from a factory that they owned, and they didn't know what to do with it. And so here we go, there's people who have too much, and there's people who don't have had hardly anything. What a match. So it all grew from there. So that was its founding idea, and it is an amazing charity, and they do a load more things now, although it is currently in urgent need of a new site as the government are selling the land that they're based on. Through our experiences that year working in the charity, we often saw great examples of people who were really fully relying on God, and we saw his grace and his provision, both for the volunteers themselves and for those whom the charity were serving around the world and in Hong Kong. Oh, yeah, I didn't end that sentence very obviously. Do you want to say more about Crossroads and your experience there?
I don't know. I think the one thing that we took out of Crossroads, not the work so much, was the community that we lived in. Was that... yeah, a load of people living together, literally helping each other make the next meals. It's like if you have too much food, you give someone, you take a plate across the stairwell to your neighbours or whatever like that. Yeah, anyone got any chilies? Oh, they'll have some chilies. We had a WhatsApp group. It's like, I need this for dinner. Okay, I've got some. I'll bring it up. It was just literally people living. I like to use the word tribe because I think that's something that we've lost in today's society. This whole idea of it's not just the people you're blood related to who are family. It's the people surrounding us and the people supporting us. Church community, church family is tribe. Your friendship groups are part of your tribe. Crossroads was our tribe when we were there. Everyone was in the same boat. We were all pretty broke. I mean, we were very blessed, but nobody was earning money, but God was providing, and we were giving back. And he was providing because we were giving back.
Another thing I wanted to mention in our time in Hong Kong was one of the clearest times that I remember receiving an answer to prayer. I was in China and a railway station about to miss a train. With friends from our church, I'd helped in an English camp in rural China in the middle of thousands and thousands and thousands of watermelon plants. Afterwards, I was traveling separately to meet up with Martin to do a holiday around China. And bear in mind, I do not speak Mandarin Chinese. And very few people in China actually speak English in the middle of it, in rural China. So I'd separated from the main group, taken a taxi to the train station, arrived at this huge train station, pretty new one, on my own, stressed, only a few minutes to queue to get my ticket, find the platform. I'm sure it's the sort of thing that many people have experienced. Had a reservation number and an email, had to queue up, find the right platform. I really remember clearly praying for help. And then I asked the person in front of me, did he speak English and could he help me? And he did. And he said of course he would help me, and he would take me to the right place. His train was just near mine anyway. And I got on the train with literally 1 minute before it set off. And it was just a really clear answer to prayer for me at that time. Okay, I think back over to you.
Okay. It's an aeroplane. Saw a lot of those during the first few months in Bucharest. When we knew we were leaving Hong Kong, we didn't know where we were going. Eva had applications in at 3 schools. Well, more than 3, but 3 that we were pretty far gone on. We could have been in Lisbon, surfing on the beach. We could have been in Bratislava, apparently one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. Or there was Bucharest. Better job. Better city. We had no idea why God called us to Bucharest. Literally no idea. It turned out the day after Eva accepted the job that we found out that our neighbours directly below us were Stuart's friends from school. We didn't know that until after we accepted the job, but that was coincidence because Steve was like, oh, I know this guy. He's at a church in Bucharest. I'll get you his number and you can chat to him. We felt at home before we'd even left. I can't say life has been easy here for me. I think Eva probably had a much more gentle experience with having a solid job and all that kind of thing. Visas, everyone has their visa stories. Everybody has their visa stories. Having to spend 4 months with my parents. I moved out from home 3 weeks after my 19th birthday and had never spent more than 2 weeks with my parents since. That was a challenge. But all the while, we were growing into this community and God was building us roots here. We still didn't know why we were in Bucharest until February, until Ukraine. I've got something to do now. I can help people. Because I couldn't do anything. I can't work. I don't have a work permit. But now I can help people. I can change beds. I can get people Ubers to the airport. Purpose. Purpose had gone away. God had given me a new purpose. Once that calmed down, I played in Ukraine services. I started to get more involved here because Stuart was leaving and somebody needed to step up. And God said, you. And it is always like that. I'm always resistant to change. But God is very good at kicking me hard up the backside and say, step forward. This is for you. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. Is this where I read my verse?
It's up to you.
Okay. I think there's two verses in Psalm 139 that have really been a key part of me rediscovering who I am in Christ. Everybody knows them. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. When I was in my hole, I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept that I was good, that I was well made. I thought I was a mess. God keeps kicking, keeps reminding us, wake up. I made you. I made you very good. I don't know where I would be without God. In fact, I do probably, because I doubt I would still be alive at this point had I been through what I went through in my late 20s without my faith. It doesn't mean it's been sweetness and roses ever since. The last 3 years have been really tough. There have been major ups and major downs. But however low I got, I can't get to the bottom because God's there pushing me up. However dark it is, I can still see because God's lighting the way. God's amazing. We just need to let him be, because all too often we're pulling away from him. We're not letting him direct our paths.
So for me, despite the constant battlefield of paperwork, the past 2.5 years have been actually a great time for development in my professional life. With more responsibility, what is it? Comes great, never mind. Power, responsibility. More responsibility, of course, means more problems to solve, actually. And being in higher positions of authority, I've become even more aware and intentional about remembering that we're working for God, not for men, and the importance of bringing situations to God in prayer. Although there's still times I forget and I haven't really quite formed a real habit, a solid habit of keeping a prayer journal. I think these past few years I've been getting better at talking to God about everything, and that's partly a lot to do with the fellowship and the community here at ICB. It's been essential in continuing to build me up in my faith, and I really value the times we spend together in connect groups, retreats, youth group, although last year I think Ocean probably did get sick of seeing me almost every day of the week. I'm also currently following the Bible recap plan, which Katie recommended and Liesel's doing as well, and Holly. It covers the whole Bible in a year chronologically, and it's really helped me to read the Bible regularly and to see the Bible as one epic narrative pointing to Jesus. I thank God for his help in continuing, and that we're nearly 100 days of looking to learn something new about him every day. Yesterday, I think it was the book of Ruth. It was a really good example of God incidences, weaving together people's lives to bring about redemption. In the past couple of years here, we've seen so many examples of when God has put the right person, the right people in the right place at the right time to provide or to protect. And even if they don't know God, we are privileged to have been able to support and serve other people in their times of need. And we thank God that he blesses us in order to enable us to bless others as our threads intersect in the ups and downs of our path through life. I think that's all I have to say. So I don't know if you want to finish something.
You want me to finish off then? Okay.
Yes.
So there we go. No great scandals. No near-death experiences. No addiction to talk about. No secret second lives. Just God, I assume. Just two people on a journey, on their own journeys that God wove together like a tapestry. And everyone that we've come across, that God has brought into our lives, has brought new colours into that. Some people are in your life for a short period of time, but they can really enrich you in that period. Some people are in your life for years and years and years and maybe don't make much impact until all of a sudden they do. But, yeah, just really want to say that life doesn't have to be exciting always. But look for God in the small things and the big things. Because so often you look back and say, there was God. There was God. I didn't talk about my job interview, which I should have done.
Never
mind. That was another God instance because it was a small one, but God was there.
Thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening. I hope that's been helpful.
I would say thank you for receiving the kick, even though it didn't come from me. I really appreciate you guys sharing your story, and I probably maybe overbooked myself a little bit this morning, but I'm excited because Emmanuel's going to come now and he's going to share his story as well. Sometimes when we share stories, sometimes they last about 20 minutes, sometimes they last longer, but I really think it's important for us to hear how God is working in each of our lives. So Emmanuel, come. I want you to share your story this morning. I want you to tell us about how God has worked in your life. Emmanuel and his wife, Michal, I've known for quite some time. I really got to know them all the way back when they got married, as I had a chance to come and be a witness at their wedding ceremony. And so I've asked him to come and share their story with us this morning as well. Do you want me to put that up now? Or? Yeah.
Good morning. I think I like Martin's story, and I'm also a visual person. Unfortunately, I do not have a slide. I was super busy during the week. I didn't have time to prepare. But thanks to Pastor Bill for having me this slide. The title, I tried to put a title to my testimony. And most of the time when I speak, because I'm an economist, I speak in economic terms. So I called it the visible hand. So for those that are economists, they are familiar with the invisible hand. So the idea behind why I chose the visible hand is that I feel like God's hand was always with me, even when I do not call on him or I'm not conscious about it. But God's visible hand was with me, even though he's an invisible God. From the concept of invisible hand, if I have to say invisible hand first, is about government taking its hand off the market and allow the market to make decisions on how prices and things are made. The reverse for me is that God's hand is on me at all times to determine my life. So this is the idea. As Pastor Bill mentioned, I'm married to a Romanian lady, a beautiful one. God has blessed her with 4 kids. The youngest one is 3 months old, and the oldest one will be 17 in July. But before we proceed, let me try to bring it to God. God Almighty, I thank you for this opportunity to tell my story. I ask you to speak through me, to use my story to inspire others, to use my story to bring others close to you, for people to even trust you even more, for people to let go and let God. Thank you, Almighty, and let your name be praised. First, just to give you an heads up, my story is difficult to tell in a short time, but I'll try my possible best to do that. So I tried to put it in 4 different phases, which will be an introduction, the foundation, you can call it belief and values, and the third one will be the challenge and triumph, events that I couldn't explain. And the third one, I'll skip a couple of them, but I'll go straight to conclusion. So from introduction, I'll try to go back for you to understand who I am and how I make my decisions and all the event that defines my life. I like to go back in time. There was a man called Mr. Stober. He met a young lady that they got married. They had a child called Emmanuel Sr., not mine. And for some reason, they couldn't stay together. They separated. And they went their way. The wife remarried and had 5 other kids. So now she has 2 husbands, as you will see, one with a kid, one with 5 other kids. They struggled all their life, and this is the story of my dad. He struggled. He couldn't fit along with his siblings. He moved to Lagos from Delta State, so he lived the rest of his life in Lagos. There was another person called Taiwo. He's from Ogun State. And he met a girl also called Felicia. Felicia also is from Ogun State. For those that know Nigeria very well, Ogun State is more like, should be two different states because we have the Egba people and we have the Ijebu people, which should be two different states. And these two, the gentleman, one is an Egba person, one is Ijebu person. They like each other very well. They plan to get married. Along the line, the man is a Muslim, while the lady is a Christian, a Catholic, a very strong one. And the family said, no, you're not going to marry. Our daughter is not going to marry a Muslim. Unfortunately for both of them, she was already pregnant. So they had a daughter called Antonia. And they both moved along. He remarried. He lived a happy marriage with his wife. She remarried also. She married another man. They had 6 kids together. God has been with them. My grandma is still alive. She's 93 now, this year. This year she's going to be 94. The husband she married would be the only grandfather I had. He died at 95. So they live a very successful life. They did very well. God bless them and their children also. My mom and my dad, I tried to tell their story because the story look alike also. But my mom didn't grow up with our mother. She grew up with her cousins. So she didn't find love, parental love from this point of view. At 18, when she left high school, she couldn't go to university, so she went to nursing school. She studied and she started working for her auntie also. Her auntie have an hospital. At that age, she got married at 18. She had 4 kids. The marriage dissolved. And then she met Emmanuel. And they married also. And they were convinced that this is it. God has blessed us. We're going to be very happy. At this point, this is the 3rd marriage of Emmanuel. He has already had 2 kids with the first wife, 3 kids with the second wife. Together with Antonia, they had 2 kids. I was the first one, Emmanuel Jr. In 1989, they separated. The first challenge I had as a child was the fact that my parents were working class. So that means they were never around. They were always traveling. Those that know Lagos very well, you understand that Lagos is a very big place, which means even when you're working within Lagos, there's a possibility they might not come home because the distance where they are is far away. This was also the time the federal government was trying to move capital from Lagos to Abuja. So my dad was always in Abuja during this time. I only heard the word Abuja. I never knew where it was then. I think this must have added to their problem because they were not even seeing each other. There was no phone then to call each other. At the time, 3 months, my dad might not be around. Anyway, they separated during this time, and I had to move with my mom, so we need to move again. But before then, one thing that my mom was good at was religion. She was very Christian. She was always trying to put religion in our mind. Even when she's not going to church, we have to go. Even when she's not at home, we have to go to church, even as children. I was born into an Anglican home. My mom was an Anglican, even though our mom was Catholic. So I was baptized in Anglican. During this time, before we left, where my parents were living, the Anglican church was too far away, so I had to join another Pentecostal church. This is where I grew as a Christian. I was taken to Sunday school. We were taught the Bible very well. I had many questions I wanted to ask, which was answered by our teachers during this time. When we moved from this location to another location, the church wanted to expand, so they sent a missionary to move with us. So we started a new church with the priest, the pastor, and our family was the only member of the church. So this brought me even closer to God. At this time, I was in the choir, I was in the usher, I was everything as the church was growing. The church grew very big along the time. We had challenges also, but God was always with us as a church. But where we moved to was a very traditionalist town, which they also have a church there, but it was more very traditional church. So seeing a new church that has things different way was difficult also, but God used the church to change things in that town. My mom remarried, just to mention. She had other 2 kids. But from Nigerian setting, people can marry more than one wife. So my mom became the second wife, which means the man was hardly around. So this is one of the biggest challenges I had in my life. I never had a man in my life to see a father figure or somebody I can look up to learn what it means to be a man. So I didn't have that opportunity. Also, but all the kids, we all moved with my mom, which means my mom cannot be available to train all of us. We're now 8 kids. She was busy working to make life for us. I had one of my sisters grow up with my grandma, so she wasn't with us. She was always living with my grandma. I had 2 other sisters going and coming, living with different family. But at constant, we were at least 5 at home. So this is when I had to step up. I had to grow up very fast to stay with my mom, to support her with her work, and to take care of my younger ones. It was difficult for me because I was very young then. I'm 89, I was just 8 years old then. So between 89 and 92, I was already the man of the house, taking care of my younger ones and even my senior ones, because nobody would take responsibility. And but it was easy for me because I was close to our pastor then, he was guiding me. I was making me take leadership role even as a child then. I was taking important responsibility in the church. God did everything for me during this time. As I mentioned, my grandma remarried. The man she married, he was a police officer. And it was, now we call them now, we say the American CIA kind of version he was. So he's in a very good position. The children are rich. He's very rich also. But my mom, because she's an outsider, that affects us, the children. We're always seen as the outsider. So that was an intimidation for me as a child. I grew up very intimidated. And I never fit in. My siblings, I think it got to them before me, and this is one of the rebellions they had. There was rebellions in our house. There was chaos also. And this is when I get even closer to God because I couldn't find an answer from anywhere. I prayed a lot. I fasted a lot during this time. I was always lonely, to be sincere. And during this time, if you think of my story and maybe the topic of my testimony, the first person that comes to your mind will be Joshua. Things had to happen in his life for God to take him to where he wants to be. To become a prime minister, he had to go to prison. Potiphar's wife had to have interest in him. God, in his life, had to make him turn it down. For that to happen, he has to be sold as slave. For that to happen, one of the brothers has to make up their mind that we shouldn't kill him. And for that to happen, he had to have a dream. So me too, I had a dream during this time. I had a dream that something has to change, that God has changed my story. I never wanted what happened to my parents, to my grandparents, to continue beyond me, because I already saw I was already at the mix of it. But I didn't want it to affect the next generation. So conscious effort had to be made. So at young age, I started working. This was 94. I was still in junior high. I started working during this time to support my mom as well and my siblings. God had a plan for me, I will say. After I left my high school, I was in the university in 2000. I had an auntie that really had interest in me. She was in Romania then. She was the head of chancery in Romania. So she called one of those days and she said, "Will I come and pay her a visit?" I said, "Oh, why not? Sure, I will come." While we were processing the visa, I already have my visitor's visa. And one of those days, we were just talking with my uncle, and he said to me, "How do I like my school, the school I was? I like it." I also wanted to study computer science. I already started with computer science then. And he gave me an hint that if, by the time I get to my auntie, maybe I can survey the schools over there and see maybe it can be a possibility for me to further my education there. I said, "Why not?" So I spoke with my auntie, and we said, okay, maybe it's better to come with a student visa. So I went back to the embassy, applied for a new visa, and got a student visa. I came to Romania. At this time, my story probably looked like that of Abraham. I had to leave my family, I had to leave the land I know, everything I knew, to a country I knew nothing about. So that time, I'm sure Pastor Bill will know better in this case, in early 2000, for you to find someone that speaks English is almost impossible in Romania. And for me to find someone that looked like me would be a miracle. So that makes it even worse for me. I'm already a timid person. I'm already a secluded person. And now I need to go outside to a place I have no idea of the system. I can't even communicate. But God was there with me. when I came, my auntie also was a priest. So God always managed to plant me among men and women of God. So she started a church in Romania, and I happened to be the administrator of the church. So she really pushed me. Like my mom, both of them actually wanted me to be a priest. They tried their best, but here I am today. I couldn't become a priest. To be sincere, I thought the load was too much for me to carry because I have grown with priests. I saw how much load they had to carry, and I thought, I don't think this is for me. So I grew up in the church, learning how to serve others, learning how to encourage others, I wasn't good at preaching, I would say, but I wasn't also too good at praying. But one thing I was good at is to live a life to reflect Jesus. One thing my mom would always tell me is, whatever I want to do, I have to think, what would Jesus say? That was the motto. So it was always in my mind. Whatever I want to do, will it glorify Christ or will it nail Jesus back on the cross? So that was the motto of my life, and I keep being cautious about it. Whatever I want to do, to make sure that I'm not nailing Jesus back on the cross. I remember giving a testimony in 2002 in a house fellowship. I also have an house fellowship during this time, and in my own house then. And I felt like God gave me the key to my glory in that year, in 2002, after coming to Romania, even though I was struggling, but this was how I felt in my mind. I'm sure probably the Holy Spirit was speaking to me. 1 year later, my auntie, her term in Romania finished. She had to return to Nigeria, and I had to be by myself again. Lucky for me. So this time, I tried my possible best to convince one of my sisters to come to Romania so I would not be alone, and one of my cousins. So I helped them in the process with their scholarship. They came. Okay, something I did not mention. When I came to Romania, I was supposed to be a paying student. My mom paid for my first semester tuition fee, but I knew that was the last money of our family, that the second semester would not come, not to mention the next years to come. So I started praying. I prayed a lot. I really, really prayed a lot. I lost a lot of weight from fasting, I have to tell you. I fasted a lot. And this is one of those times when it was obvious that it wasn't me. It was God. I applied for scholarship the moment I paid for my school fees. The school took me. Good for me, that same year, I can't remember if it was the same year or the year before, ASE started a foreign faculty. So I was able to study in English instead of studying in Romania. That's after I applied for the scholarship. We were tied together. We had only one slot left from the Romanian government to Nigerian. And we had 2 students that were competing for it at this point in time. It was obvious that I was going to lose the scholarship. It was obvious. At the last minute, the scholarship was already given to the other person, and I said, okay, I will apply again next year. I already called my mom. Whatever you have to do, if you have to sell your house, you need to sell it. We have to pay for my second semester. I will try again the next year. About 1 week later, the ministry called and sent another letter, and they denied. They took back the scholarship from the other person because his mom is a Romanian. He said for that reason, they cannot give him the scholarship, that he can use the Romanian bursary instead. So that scholarship became available, and that's how I got it. This wasn't me. I didn't do any fight with the ministry because it was obvious, it was a competition. Somebody has to get it. With one scholarship, 2 persons chasing it. But God stepped in for me. Because there was no way I could have, even if my mom should sell her house to pay for my second semester, we have the next year's school fees to pay. And this was how it all started. So I got my scholarship. Now I need to sustain the scholarship. I don't know how it is now, but then if you get a scholarship, you need to sustain it. Otherwise, you lose it the next year. So this time was difficult for me, I have to say. I wasn't getting any money from home to take care of myself. I have to depend on $50 then, from which I have to buy school books, I have to pay for my hostel, I have to pay for everything. But somehow, God sustained me throughout my academics life. God was great. At every time I'm in trouble, God always stepped in. This was the good part. It was a 4 years degree then. Now, I know it's 3 years now. It was a 4 years then. We used to call it licenta, which is kind of equivalent to a master's degree. In my final year, I was already working, by the way, in my 3rd year. My final year where I was working, that was where I met my wife. I was a manager, so it was more like office romance. But that wasn't the major story. What brought us together was interesting for me because I've been brought up in a Christian environment. I had a bunch of Romanian friends, and I saw that most people claim to be Christian and actually not Christian. When I speak to them, how many times have you been in church? 5 times. Most of them are during weddings. Those that have been in churches, they've gone at least once a year, which is during Easter, the Easter night. So for me, this wasn't Christianity. But one day, after closing at work on a Friday, I went back home. I was feeling lonely. There was a church service, by the way, which I didn't go on that particular day because I was too tired. And then I called Mihaela, and I called her because I just feel like talking to someone. And she wouldn't pick. I sent a message, and then she replied, I'm in church. That was surprising for me, to find a Romanian that was in church, first of all, not to mention, just to be in church. And then it's not even a Sunday. It's a Friday in church. Okay, that was a new one for me. And this is how it all started. So I was like, okay, this is definitely a wife material. So this is how it all started, and the rest is history. But before then, no, after then, I had to move on. I applied for my master's degree. For my PhD, I was supposed to apply for with scholarship. I didn't get the scholarship, but my visa was about to expire. My visa will expire in December. I was working then. I tried to persuade my manager then to support me to extend my work permit, but they would not do that. They said they can employ me without work permits, so I'll collect my salary under the table. I was like, no. I never want to be an illegal in any way, and I never want to do anything that would be against the law. I do not think it's a Christian thing to do. So I said, I will follow the highway. The highway will be, I will leave Romania. At this time, I've already applied for scholarship for the coming year, applied for school in Timișoara also, but I needed to leave. Of course, my girlfriend there was sad that I was supposed to leave, and at this time we discovered she was already pregnant, but I have to leave anyway. This was a bad news. The parents, they were really mad at me. As a matter of fact, they disowned their daughter because of me. It was a bad time for her, it was a bad time for me. They never wanted to hear anything about any black person, I have to say. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible experience for them. Also because they came from a poor background, they wanted to give their children something different to make sure that the children break out of the chain of poverty. And now, their daughter just ruined the life they tried to build for her. But I had to leave anyway. At this time, I had a 2-year visa for the UK, so I left for the UK so that I can be able to return back to Romania, hoping that I'll get a scholarship the second year. I was in the UK. I couldn't get the kind of job I wanted. And I have a level of arrogance here also. I remember working for somebody, just a job just to get going. And when I applied for a particular job, I've forgotten where was it, the person called me, the recruiter called me and said, oh, I have a job for you. And I said, what is it? So if you don't mind, it's a black man's job. And that ring in my head. I cried. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. That's abusing me to say a job is a black man's job. So I said, I'm not going to take it. At this time, my auntie also is in the UK, so I was living with her, and I told her I will return to Nigeria. I will not go through everything I went through in Romania to accept a job that is described as a black man's job. I would rather return back home and recalibrate. At this time, I have the opportunity to go to the national service in Nigeria, so I said I will go for that. At least I will have 1 year to recalibrate. So 2007, I went back to Nigeria to do my national service. Unfortunately for me, I've lost touch with reality of Nigeria. I went from Lagos to Abuja. I went with the bus. On getting to Abuja, I lost my document. Everything I came back home was stolen. I met the company that owned the bus, and they said, I'm liable for everything with them. Like, we have, the big bus that you travel with this cross-continent, like this Euro line. And they are telling me the bag in the down, I'm liable for it. I tried everything, I couldn't get it back. And for those that know Nigeria, you cannot work without a certificate. You will not be employed without a certificate. I reached out to ASE. They said I need to physically be here to get a duplicate copy. Okay, they should give me an invitation to come to Romania. They will not do that either. My life was chaotic. I regretted even returning to Nigeria. It was as if something dragged me to Nigeria to destroy me. Anyway, I didn't return. I went to Abuja for my national service. On the day I was supposed to get to the camp, to the national camp, I would not be admitted also because I wasn't with my original document. And this is another God's time. So I went to the National Secretary to request to speak to whosoever that will be willing to listen to me. Somehow they keep passing me upward until they pass me to somebody in a director. While I was still talking to the director, somebody passed by. It was the PA to the head of the ministry. It wasn't something I planned. I never thought so. I was taken to the head of the unit directly. Those that are in Nigeria, you don't go to ministry and talk to minister or permanent secretary. It's not possible. It only happens in dreams or in movies. I was standing at the front of the permanent secretary, and I tell her my story. And she just gave me a note and approved it. My cousin was with me. He was crying. He couldn't believe it. Like, this don't happen. He told everybody the story. Everybody think he was lying. It does not happen for you to even see the permanent secretary. Even if sometimes you work in that ministry, you don't get to see the permanent secretary. I met the permanent secretary in less than 30 minutes. I arrived at the ministry. I got it approved, and I ran back to the camp. It was a 1 hour drive, but I made it. My cousin couldn't believe it. He was crying, cry for joy. He was crying that this kind of thing happened in his lifetime. He didn't watch it in a movie or read it in a book. But this was my story. I went to the camp. I did my 3 weeks military exercise, and I was posted. In Nigeria, people lobbied when they want to be posted to an office. I didn't know anybody. I left Nigeria, it's been 5 years, and I was posted to NNPC. It's the National Petroleum Corporation, which is the food basket of Nigeria. People nobody believed it that I didn't lobby. I didn't do anything, but that was why I was posted. On getting there, during my interview, somebody walked in and just saw me and requested that I should be posted to him. That was one of the managers to the investment division. So they asked me to take my file and go present to him, to his boss. Getting to the office, his boss doesn't have an office yet. He was just coming from the UK, one of the division in the UK, and they need to set him up there. So he was sitting in his colleague's office. And he said, "Oh, who is this?" While he was still checking my document, he passed it to his colleague, and his colleague said, "You know what?" They started fighting who I should be reporting to. And they decided that I should report to the general manager, how is he called again? He's more or less like number 4 in NNPC. I should report directly to him. These don't happen in real time. What I'm trying to say is I was directed, my dream was to become a broker when I was in in Romania. I was working for an investment firm. And when I got to Nigeria, an oil company, and I didn't do anything to deserve that. Number 2, I happened to be in the office of the investment division, which I didn't lobby for either. And they just showed interest in me. They didn't know me from anywhere, and they wanted me to work with him. There I learned everything I could learn as an investment analyst for that 1 year. He took my case personal. I was more like his PA. So he got me grounded to learn everything I could learn. I was working straight with stockbrokers. I was the one qualifying them for watch all NNPC's investments during this time. And that really helped me. After finishing my 1 year, obviously it was more difficult for me to get a job without my certificate, so I became an entrepreneur. I was using the knowledge I've gotten from NNPC. I worked. During this time, I've tried to convince Miala to come to Nigeria. She would not come to Nigeria. That's another thing I need to resolve. But we kept contact. She sent pictures to me of my son, and that's the best we could do during this time. I started finding every possible way. I knew for us to be together, I have to leave Nigeria. If she would not come to Nigeria, I have to leave Nigeria. I applied for many scholarships. I didn't get some of them. Some that I got, this was funny, because I would check on the Ministry of Education of that country, and I would see my name in the list as being given scholarship, and the list in Nigeria would not include my name. And that happened more than 5 times, including Romanian scholarship, Russian one, the one for Turkey, and the UK. So I became acquainted with the scholarship board. I've been going there until almost all the directors knew me already. And they told me, there's a scholarship coming. It's the Petroleum Trust Fund scholarship. I need to apply for it. I did. The same story happened. There was the Commonwealth scholarship, which every Nigerian would kid themselves to have. I did. I even dragged a friend along. He got it. I didn't get it. Sorry. His sister got it. 3 of us. I didn't get it. And one of those days, I was super angry, and I said, I would like to see the permanent secretary for the scholarship board. And they laughed at me like they think I'm crazy to even imagine such. But the directors, they already knew me. They already knew my story. So they gave me an hint where the office is, where the waiting room is, and they said, you have to put yourself in a strategic position for the person to see you because you need an appointment to see her. To get an appointment, I need to come with a letter from an MP, a member of the parliament, to even see her. I don't have anybody like that in my family. So I went, just like the advice. I remained in the waiting area because I got a note from one of the directors. That means the director's PA couldn't chase me out. I remained there. The permanent secretary came, a couple of times passed by. I resumed about 8 o'clock in the morning. Around 5 o'clock, she was going home, and she still saw me in the same place. And she was like, gentleman, what are you doing here? I said, I didn't know who I was talking to. I said, I came to see the permanent secretary for this, and I couldn't make it into the list. And she said, okay, you know what? And she dragged me to her office by herself, handed me over to her PA, and they said, give me an appointment for tomorrow. So I got an appointment with her. The next day I came back with all proofs, all the printouts from all the ministries abroad, where my name showed out as being shortlisted for scholarship, where the list in Nigeria doesn't even reflect my name. After speaking with her, she told me that between me and God, she has nothing to do about it. She does not know anything about it. But she gave me a second chance. She said, I should go now and write a new exam. So in Nigeria, the scholarship exam, you are supposed to be booked according to a region. So my dad is from the south. I'm supposed to go to my dad's area to go and write the exam. But I was living in Abuja. And we're talking about the exam is the next day. I couldn't make it. I don't even have cost transportation. We're talking about 1,000 kilometers away. So she said she will break the rule for my sake, that I can, since I'm a resident of Abuja, I can write it in that region's exam. I was sent to Nasarawa State for the exam. It was 45 minutes from Abuja. So I went. I wrote the exam. 1 week later, suddenly she called me. She requested for my script by herself to mark it because she saw that something has to be wrong somewhere, and she broke the news that I passed the exam. Not only did I pass the exam, for my region, I was the first person to be picked. Only 4 people would be picked. I was number 1. And she told me, I can remember very well what she said. She said, now that you've passed the exam, we have to find you a country to go. Which country would you like to go? I made a list from 4, and I came back. I will not get those countries, any of these countries. 1 week later, she called me that the Chinese, they have a scholarship. Would you like to take the exam again? They don't want to use the Nigerian exam. They have their own exam separately. I said, why not? I went again. I wrote the exam. And then she called me. She said every time she would request for my own script to be marked by herself to be sure that there's no aki-panky anywhere. So she took my script. She called me again. You pass. You have 2 scholarships now. You have to choose where to go. I said, I will choose the Chinese one. At this time, I spoke with my uncle. He encouraged me also to go to China. I spoke with my family. They said, no, you're not going to China for any reason. Everybody are afraid. It's too far away. Many reasons why I shouldn't go. And the school I applied for then denied me admission. Anyway, I was asking for too much. I requested to go to Peking University, which is one of the best universities in China. And during that time, as God wanted it, there are 2 universities in Beijing, the School of Economics and the School of Finance just merged together to form a new school, and they wanted new students. So they selected me without me applying, and they sent a note to Nigeria. The permanent secretary got it, and they called me and said, this school wanted you. Would you like to go to China still? And I said, yes. And she told me, said, now it's between you, your God, and the Chinese. That's how she put it. You, your God, and the Chinese. And I said, this time around, if it's me and God, we can team up together against the Chinese. So I went ahead. I did everything I need to do. I prayed. I fasted, I have to say. I prayed a lot. And then I went to get all the required documents, medical history and everything. And the rest is history. I went to China. China was where God turned things around for me because the scholarship was a very good one. I was earning more than people that work in office as a student during this time. The Chinese was paying me. The Nigerian government was paying me at the same time for bursary. Why the Chinese pay for my school fees, pay for my books. That was the first time as a student I have textbooks. Before then, I didn't have. So for every subject I have, to the pen I write, the Chinese provided it. The Chinese government provided it. To even my hostel, I have an hostel like an apartment. This is how much I was taken care of. During this time, in 2011, I returned to Romania to reconcile with my wife then and to meet my son for the first time. And that was when I came to church. My wife was living closer here, so I came to IBC during this time, and I felt at home. I said, okay, if I have to return to Romania, this will be the church I'll be coming. That same year, 2011, before coming, I've applied for a visa, and I would not get the visa. The invitation my wife was getting from here to come to Romania, I remember very well, at the immigration office, they told her they would not give me, and she requested also, I encouraged her to request to speak to whoever is the boss there. She thought also I was crazy. She tried exactly what I did, what I told her, and they told her that I'm a potential refugee. That was why they denied me the visa. It touched my heart because I knew I left Romania for that same reason, not to be addressed that way. I left before my visa was expired. I still had 2-month visa when I left, just because I don't want to be classified like this. During this time, I was very acquainted with the head of chancellery over there, with the ambassador, which I never met, and he approved my visa to come to Romania then. I never met me, just heard about my story. So that was 2011 one. In 2012, I've applied for a couple of scholarships, even in Germany. So I got 2 scholarships, one in Germany, one in Romania. So I decided to come to Romania to settle old story. When I came, the scholarship was already approved. My scholarship, my PhD scholarship was approved already, but it wasn't sent to the embassy. But the ambassador decided to give me a visa to come to Romania, even though they still need an approval from the ministry. That was under God's time. For those that work in the embassy, know you need to get an approval from ministry before ambassador can issue such thing. So I had to make a letter of power of attorney to a friend so that when my approval comes to China, they can send it back to me in Romania. So that's how I came to Romania. Coming to Romania, a Nigerian has misbehaved. I wanted to go to ASE, but my admission was for Timișoara. A Nigerian in ASE has misbehaved, and they've promised not to admit any Nigerians again in the school. That was another God's time, another opportunity for God to step in for me. I went to the international student office. I spoke with them over there. I told them my history. They know my history very well, every role I've played in the school. I was also in extracurriculum activities over there, and I told them that I'm different and I wanted to be treated as an individual than as a group. And they said, okay, they agreed to admit me, but not with scholarship. So I had to go back to the ministry again to make my case for my scholarship to be changed from Timișoara back to Bucharest, citing that I have a wife-to-be in Bucharest and a son here, and it will be divided our family if I have to go to Timișoara. Somehow, they accept that they don't want to break up family, that I should be in Bucharest. The school also accept the same thing. And then my school accept that I should be on scholarship. So I had my PhD in Bucharest. And this is how we became together. To settle down to what God wanted us to be, we needed to get married. Another type of challenge showed up. For those that are my new Orthodox church, that was my next challenge. This was what brought us together, but now it became a problem for me. The Orthodox church thinks I'm not a Christian enough. Therefore, I cannot marry somebody in Orthodox church. They threw almost everything at me, almost everything, I will say, at me. My wife's godparent was even, I don't know the name for them. It's a kind of a high priest, if you say, that live in the mountain. So these are special priests that are treated differently. And I would have hoped that he would be the one to understand better. But he said no, it will not happen. At this time, I met another priest, which is an American, by the way. He used to be a Baptist pastor before he became Orthodox, and he had interest in me. So he said he wanted to work with me, and he said we should work together. So for him, he said he doesn't mind. He will marry us together because he's from Baptist background. He understands. He said love conquers everything. He will marry us together without me being an Orthodox. He's also the priest for Ephraim, by the way. So he is one that supported Ephraim as well, so he didn't need to have any problem. Anyway, long story short, they insisted that the only way to happen is I need to become an Orthodox, or at least I need to baptize an Orthodox. This was weird for me because in the Bible, people only baptize once, right? And I was baptized as a child. When I grew up in China, part I didn't mention is that in China, I was going to international church in China. International church was very, very big in China. I was a fellowship also, and I spoke with one of the priests over there about my story, my Christian life. and why I did not baptize the second time again, because I wasn't sure if it's the right thing to do. But I thought Christianity means I have to decide myself. As a child, my parents decided for me. So he convinced me and he said, okay, what about you see it this way, as rededicating your life, instead of seeing it as a new baptism? And I thought it makes sense. So while I was in China, I baptized again. So that was my second baptism. Now back to Romania, I'm supposed to baptize the third time. So for me, I was very stubborn. I said, no, if the marriage will end, it will end from this way, because I think I've given too much to this journey, and now everything is about to crumble. But then I have to look back on what was the journey about. The dream I had was to change course of history. That was the dream I had. I saw my grandparents had something that rubbed on my parents. It actually rubbed on my siblings also. I saw my first sister, the first child of the family, divorced. I saw the second child divorced, also the third one, the same thing. And I thought it's about to catch up to me. I'm the fifth child. And I wanted to make sure that it stopped where it was. It doesn't go beyond me, and it doesn't go to my children. So I spoke with my mom at this time, and she said, you've done more than enough anybody would do, but maybe you need to do one more. She tried to convince me and said, see it again like the priest in China said, see it as you rededicating your life to Christ again. So I took it, and I met the American priest. I told him that I was going to do the baptism. He asked me that, do I want to do it? That it's not something I'm doing for, if it's something I'm doing, I should do it for Christ. So I took him to go for Bible process, the baptism class. In Orthodox, they don't have it, but I told him I would like to have that. If I was baptized, I want to go the whole way. So I had the baptismal class with him, a 3-month course, and he baptized me then. So we got married. During my marriage was a challenging time for me as well, because I didn't have my family there. It's like everything that happened in my life, it happened with me being alone. But glory be to God, I had Pastor Bill as well. He was with me during my marriage. So we got married. What I want to mention is that every course of my life, God was there with me. I met all kinds of bumpy road, but God was there. Throughout all my studying, I had it on scholarship. I'm not the most brilliant person, I have to confess, but God was always there with me. Even in my career, I had challenges. I discussed some of these also with Pastor Bill. I had time that I had a manager that actually advised me to quit. Otherwise, she would be the one to sack me. This was 2014. I had to quit. I met the owner of the business. It was a consulting firm. The CEO then told me that he wanted me to work with them, but he cannot force the manager to want me. Another division manager, it was a consulting firm, so I was working operational consulting. The financial consulting unit wanted me to move to them. But I don't want animosity between the managers. I said I decided to quit the job altogether. In January, February, I was sick. I had chickenpox from my son then. And during that time, Erickson called me. I was on sick bed when I was called. I went for the interview. As God wanted, the person that was interviewing me was a colleague of another Nigerian that I was training while I was in school. I was training them the way of God and how to study in school, how to do things. And one of those times, they had a project together. I went to Accident to teach them. And I didn't even know who I was talking to. And he actually reminded me that there was a project they did. I was the one that came to teach them. And for that reason, he wanted to work with me. So he was like, during the interview, we just chit-chatting. Because he was convinced he wanted to work with me, because I was the one that helped him to even get the job. That's what he said. I was like, good luck to that. I didn't know him. So I got the job. I had a challenge, because I was applying for a managerial position, but they told me they already have somebody, but he wanted me to be the team. He said he persuaded me to join their team, that there will be a position open, I'll be able to apply for it. That didn't happen. My manager went on maternity leave. I was the next in line. It didn't happen. They recruited somebody else. The new manager came. They made me a supporting manager. When he was leaving also 6 months later, he recommended me. I couldn't get the job. All this challenge happened. But I knew God wanted to do something. God used that time to strengthen me, to improve on my skills. During this time, I started training other people that wanted to grow in their career path. And people quickly knew me at work. During this time, I was doing my PhD. I was supposed to teach, but I couldn't do my work and teach. So my supervisor then told me that if I have any job that suggests teaching, that they would take that as my grade. So during this, I applied for Ericsson Academy, which is a kind of consulting training people. So I was training people at work. This led many people to know me. In 2018, 2 managers came that I've worked with. They were having interest in me. They want me to move to their unit. Long story short, I selected one of them, and that was a double promotion I got from that. So I had a double leap from career point of view. So all the thing I had until then looked like God helped me clean it up. Between then, also, I had different type of challenges. Until 2000, my company had transformation, which affect many people. Many people were laid off, but God was with me. I had my job kept because it's difficult, I have to say, for a foreigner to get a job in Romania, especially for a Nigerian. But my job was secured. Yes, it wasn't the best I wanted because I couldn't grow because of the challenge, but my job was secured. In between 2021 and last year, my line manager changed 5 times, which was a threat on my job also. If my line manager keeps changing, if their job is a threat, my job is a threat, it means I cannot negotiate even my salary or my growth, I can't negotiate it. But God was with me. Last year, I would say God was playing prank with me because generally I didn't like my line manager to be a female. But God had a plan for me. I applied for a job which was supposed to be under the manager of my manager, supposed to be a promotion. And when I applied for it, he suddenly called me, I was like, oh, Emmanuel, thank you for applying for the job. He's from Switzerland. But you know what? You cannot report to me. I was like, what? Like, I want to start a new unit, and I'm assigning this person, Alexandra is her name, she's from Croatia, to be the head of the unit. So if you really want the job, you have to report to her. I was like laughing because at first, I didn't want to even work with her. I've worked with her on the same level because we're teammates, and she was getting a promotion, and I was supposed to report to her. At the same time, another colleague of mine, when our manager left, was promoted. We all applied for the job, but he was promoted. So I had to choose between 2 different colleagues that got promoted to report to them, which wasn't funny. But God had a plan. During this time, many things happened within Ericsson, and some people entrusted me, because I'm working in procurement, so I do a lot of negotiation. And the sales team, somebody entrusted me with some negotiation to join their team to negotiate some deals for Ericsson. But those negotiations were sales job, wasn't for procurement. But Ericsson was about to lose a contract, and that would affect a lot of things within Ericsson, and I was made the head of the project during this time. So I had to have teams between sales, legal, compliance, and other units to lead the team to negotiate the deal. And through God and perseverance, I was able to negotiate a very good deal for Ericsson to get out of the contract. And that has God propelled me to a new challenge also. So this lady, when she saw the negotiation I did, she got recommendation from different managers from different units. And she said, you know what, I would like to work with Emmanuel. It might look simple, but it wasn't that simple because there's another lady that was competing for the same position. She was more qualified, if I would say, in the category of the job than myself. I have a broad understanding. I was good at negotiation, but for that particular department, the other lady was more qualified. But what my future manager wanted was somebody that can have her back. She made it clear for me from the beginning. Somebody that can have her back, she wanted. And when she requested for reference, I gave her a couple of references, and then she reached out to other people that I've worked with that I didn't give her, and they told her that if you need somebody that will watch your back, Emmanuel is the person you should take. And that was the only reason why she took me. She said, every other thing we can learn together, 2 of us. I just want somebody that will have my back. And this is how we started the new department. We're just 2. Used to be a department of 6, but 2 of us are supposed to man this department. And as God wanted, between then, February last year, and now, God has used both of us extensively. God has strengthened our collaboration. And through her, I was promoted once, and I even had my salary reviewed 3 times in 12 months. And this couldn't have been done without God. Because I can tell you, I had 4 years that I couldn't even negotiate my salary. I couldn't even negotiate it. And in 12 months, I had the salary reviewed 3 times. And I got promoted even once. So what I'm trying to say is God was with me. In life, we're going to have bumpy road. It's definitely, but we shouldn't lose sight of where God wants us to be. When we have a dream, like I had, like Joshua also had, We need to be determined. We need to do our job without compromise. Joshua did not compromise, Joseph rather, did not compromise because he could have said, if I sleep with my Potiphar's wife, I'm going to get more favored among all the other slaves. He didn't think about that. He thought about what would glorify God. That was what he thought about. So even our work, in our schools, in our place of work, we shouldn't follow shortcuts. We should think about what will glorify God. Because in the short time, we might get some benefits, but in the long time, we will not be glorifying God's name. But God has a way to glorify himself in us. So just to draw to conclusion so I don't get all of you bored, I would like to just point out at something. A Bible verse, which is Proverbs 16, verse 9, which says, in their heart, human plan their course, but the Lord establish their step. So while we're applying our course, we should put God front, center, and back. Because God knows better, can see things that we cannot see, and he can order our step. Sometimes it's not going to be the easiest thing to do, I have to say, because I can tell from my story. It's not the easiest thing to do, but God is always at the front of it. And secondly, another verse that speaks well to me is Romans 8:28. And it said, all things work together for good for those that love God. Therefore, we should put the love of God first in all we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I know we went a little bit longer this morning, but it is always good to hear about God's faithfulness, about his goodness. Would you not agree? Amen to that? God is good, and we want to celebrate how he has worked in each of our lives. Why don't you stand to your feet? I'm going to close this in prayer here in just a second as we get ready to go. But I just want to do something that just kind of, it's a little bit spontaneous, but I think it's appropriate. If you know the chorus, God is so good, can you sing it with me? God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. I think you would agree he's been good to each one of us if we have a relationship with him. Amen? Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for the story of your grace and how rich that is in each of our lives as you've transformed us from the kingdom of darkness and put us into the kingdom of your dear Son. Lord, we praise you as we hear these stories of how clearly you had your sovereign hands on lives each step of the way to bring them to where they are, not just now, but where you're going to take them on into the future. Lord, we thank you because these stories encourage us and they help us to be able to continue forward in each one of our lives. And Lord, I pray that you continue to keep your hand of blessing upon Martin and Eva, and that you keep your hand of blessing upon Emmanuel and Mihaela, that, Lord, you continue to use them and work in and through them as well. Lord, thank you for the encouragement that we've received this morning. May it encourage us to go out and to continue to live consistent lives that show the light of Jesus to the world around us. Go with us now, we pray, and we pray this now in Jesus' name. Amen. As you go this morning, I just want to encourage you. On the screen, I'm going to leave the slide up that showed the sign up for the weekend away. If you'd like to sign up on there is a QR code, and on that QR code, I want to encourage you to go click on it and sign up if you can. It was great to see you. God bless you. Have a wonderful Sunday.